Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Bad Neighbors, a Good HOA and Some Karma, posted by user Freighter Teltos on our own subreddit r/Ripe Stories. This is our story about true neighbors from hell, an actual good HOA and a bit of instant karma thrown in for good measure. So, way back in 2001, my husband and I decided to finally quit renting and buy our own place. Being in San Diego, California, buying an actual house was way out of our budget, so that left us with condos. We finally found a really nice place at a complex made up of townhomes in Oceanside, far north side of San Diego County, most famous for its marine base at Camp Pendleton. The unit we found was extra spacious and was on the end of the 4-unit building, so less chance of having issues with the neighbors, right? Sure, it had an HOA, but everyone we talked to had nothing but good to say about them, no power trips, BS fines or anything like that. So we bought the place in August 2001 and moved in about a month later. Life was great, it wasn't even that far from work as we both worked for the same company at the time. Well, that peace lasted about a week. Turns out the neighbors that we shared that one wall with had been on an extended vacation and were just getting back. We got our first indication that there was a problem on the same day they returned. The household consisted of a single mother, who we will call Entitled Mother or EM, and 2 young boys, approximately 12 and 8, that we will call Entitled Brad 1 and 2, although we never interacted with or heard directly from EB2. I think he was overshadowed by his big brother. We came out of our place to the somewhat nice yard on our property, remember, end unit, and the older boy EB1 was over in that yard with a bucket and shovel, digging up the nice new flowers I had planted in the flower bed our first weekend there. I nicely introduced myself as the new property owner and asked EB1 to please not do that anymore and stay in either his own yard or the approved kid-friendly areas of the complex. He, in turn, called me something rather nasty names, especially coming from a kid that age, and went running back to his unit screaming for his mother. We were not even fully in our car yet to go to work before EM was standing by the car screaming at us. I never understood all she was saying, but the basic point was, how dare I tell her precious baby to stop doing something he was doing. Note, she never even bothered to introduce herself, she just started yelling. I responded to her, again being very friendly, and explained that I understood that they may have gotten used to our unit being empty for a while, but it was ours now and please keep the kids off the property. Most especially, don't be digging up our landscaping after I spent our money and my time putting it all in. She yelled some more and then went back to her place. My husband and I shrugged our shoulders and headed off to work. Not much more we could do then and there. After work when we got home, I noticed 2 things. First, the neighbor's car was gone, which I assumed meant that EM was also gone. Second was that there was rap music playing so loudly from that unit that it could be heard near across the street and halfway down the block where the mailboxes were located, and it was clear that at least the kids were home. Obviously the noise was way worse inside our unit, but we decided there really wasn't much we could do then and there, as I wasn't going to get into a confrontation with a kid. This became a recurring pattern after that, as she left those 2 boys alone for hours at a time while she did who knows what. I know she wasn't working, as she complained loudly and constantly in the unit about not being able to find a job. The next day was basically a repeat, except we didn't have to deal with EB1 in our yard in the morning. So we bided our time as it was Friday and we knew we could speak with the HOA properties manager the next day since she kept Saturday office hours. Saturday we went down to talk to the property manager, who I will call Evelyn, fake name, I have no idea what her real name was after 20 years, that is when she made the full picture came clear to us. That unit next to us was not owner occupied, in fact it was not even a basic rental. The owner got it as an income property and then applied for and was approved for Section 8 housing status. It was in fact the only rental unit in the entire complex of over 300 units. I guess the HOA had fought against it, but legally there was nothing they could do. For those of you outside the United States or just don't know, Section 8 is a federal program run by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, to provide housing for poor families. HUD basically guarantees that the rent will be paid no matter what. Theoretically, the family was supposed to pay a portion of the rent, but it is/was not uncommon for unscrupulous landlords to make a deal off the record to only accept what HUD paid. They also have a reputation for not giving a damn what their tenants do and never follow up on complaints. There was a complaint record/notebook for these renters that had to have been at least an inch thick, if not more. The problem was every single complaint of any type was immediately responded to with accusations of discrimination, racial discrimination, they were black, status discrimination because they were poor, and on Section 8 because she was a single mother, etc. Basically, all complaints were ignored, fines were pretty much useless as the slumlord owner would just find a way out of them through some Section 8 loophole. The only good thing that came out of that meeting was getting to know Evelyn. She was like the sweet grandma on the block that everyone loved. Got a problem that the HOA has to deal with? Tell Evelyn it will probably be fixed in 24 hours. Got a question about the surrounding area? Ask her, she had lived in the area her entire life. Basically, she was the exact opposite of what we have come to expect from an HOA rep of any kind, so that is what we had to put up with in our new dream home. Somehow, with being so poor that they needed housing assistance, food stamps and welfare for the kids, they still managed to go on vacations every month or two. I'm not just talking about family visits either, I am talking week-long trips to the House of Mouse near LA, the theme park of multiple flags, that kind of vacation. We didn't care, at least we got some peace and quiet. Quick but important note, considering our neighbors, we decided to invest in a monitored alarm system for our unit from that banking/security company with the state coach. It was way too early for affordable home security cameras, but door and window alarms plus fire and CO monitoring was with the cost. Now we come to May of 2002, my husband and I are at lunch with a bunch of our co-workers, yum, all you can eat sushi, when I got a call on my cell phone from Evelyn. Yeah, it was quite early to have a cell phone back then, but it was necessary for my job and they paid for it. I couldn't quite make out what Evelyn was saying because there was so much noise in the background, but I finally got the two words that mattered. Condo fire. My husband and I threw some money down for lunch and explained what was going on to our co-workers, then flew out of there, heading home. I know that was normally a 25 to 30 minute drive, but I swear we made it in around 15 minutes. The whole time there was only one thing going through both of our minds, and that was, oh my god, the cats! What about the cats? We never really even thought about our home, just those poor kitties. The news was actually some good and some bad. The firemen had already cleared the scene except for some hotspot watchers, so we could go into our place immediately. They were scared out of their minds and hiding, but both kitties were okay as far as we could tell. So apparently was our condo, sort of. There was no fire damage to the unit, however, the firemen busted our door down so they could access our common wall and chop through it. Then they went up to the attic space, which we learned was shared among all 4 units. A few thousand gallons of water later and our entire unit was waterlogged and smoke damaged. That alarm system we paid so much money for? Well, it seems the fire department busted through the door, the alarm went off as it should. The fireman though just took an axe to the siren speaker and the control panel, effectively disabling it. For whatever reason, Stagecoach Company SCC never questioned any of that and just put the earlier alarm off to a false alarm, or as explained below, the fire in the shared attic space burned through the wires, so they never even received notification of a problem. Here is where the good HOA comes in. Evelyn didn't have my contact info for some reason, so she called SCC herself and gave them all the info on the address and what had happened. The stupid idiots at SCC didn't even want to believe her, but somehow she sweet-talked them into giving her my emergency cell number so she could get a hold of me. Then, knowing what had happened and knowing about our cats, she planted herself in front of our door until we arrived to make sure neither one was able to sneak out and get lost. To this day, I still credit her with saving those babies who could have easily gotten lost or injured and lived to the ripe old ages of 20 and 25. As for the fire itself, it was of course the fault of EB1. It seems he decided to skip school that day and managed to get home. Being bored, he literally started playing with matches, candles and cigarettes. His room was the one adjoining our unit, so when the fire got out of control, it went up in the attic space and burned through all the wires, among other things. That was why they busted through our wall to fight the fire from the back side. Thank whatever or whomever you hold holy for the Red Cross that day, they were there before the fire was even out, ready to help. They got us a pet-friendly hotel to stay at until insurance kicked in. They paid for both cats to be checked out by the vet to make sure they didn't have any issues from the smoke or whatever. They gave us vouchers for a local big box store so we could buy enough clothing and supplies for at least a week, as well as more vouchers and coupons as for us to eat during that time. They even had someone on site in a trailer offering food, clothes, showers and emergency medical care. Basically, they took care of everything. Now, thankfully, we had full homeowners insurance, so we were covered for everything. Other than a few things damaged by water, all our possessions were fine and they moved everything out to the garage, which was not affected, in something like a couple of hours. Then they put us up at a nice furnished corporate condo not far from home and work. The neighbors not so lucky though, most of their stuff was burned to a crisp. They got basic support from the Red Cross just like anyone else would. They didn't have any renter's insurance though, so they had no recovery of the stuff they lost. I also heard that since the kid caused the fire marshal declared it as arson, so they ended up with juvenile charges against him and a DCFS investigation of the whole family. Call it karma, justice, whatever, I personally think they deserved all that they got. For my husband and I, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. 2 weeks after the fire, the company we worked for was bought out by a multi-millionaire in West Hollywood. Of all the people there, my husband and I were 2 of the 3 people the new owners offered jobs to. The other gal didn't take the offer, with a nice pay raise for moving to a more expensive location, I might add. So we put our condo on the market as is, and just for the hell of it we asked for $30,000 more than what we paid just 9 months before. We figured worst case scenario, we had room to negotiate down and still at least break even. Not 2 days later we had an offer for the full asking price from a couple that was living in their RV. The fact that the entire place from top to bottom was being ripped out and replaced made it even that much more appealing to the buyers. So in return they could decide on stuff like carpets and paint colors as long as it didn't go over what insurance was willing to pay. So we owned our condo for a grand total of 10 months and managed to make $30,000 off of it thanks to a fire. For us, we got ourselves a nice apartment in West Hollywood halfway between Sunset Boulevard and Santa Monica Boulevard and walking distance to all the fun hotspots in town, and we even got the insurance to pay for moving all our stuff up because they packed it. They also then had to unpack it and it didn't matter where that was. Oh yeah, after we got that unexpected windfall from the sale, we did go back and make a nice sized donation to the San Diego County Red Cross. A donation that was well deserved. And I gotta say, Freighter Teltos, that is one incredible story. I am glad that things worked out for you in the end. However, this story definitely shows that it is a very good idea to have renter's insurance. And in case you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is a neighbor story from Ask Reddit. Alright everyone, sit down and buckle in because I've got a 15-year-long feud for you. My mom, dad and I moved into a condo when I was about 14. It is set up like an apartment building, so we had a neighbor on our right and one below us. When we first moved in, we met Trina, our downstairs neighbor. She was an older woman, 60s, taking care of her mentally challenged grandson, my same age but mentally a 6-year-old with minimal language development. She seemed sweet and welcomed us. We had a few small issues but kept them to ourselves. She smoked a lot, like 3 to 4 packs a day, and the smell would overtake our house, and the grandson would scream a lot in the early morning, but nothing serious, and we never said a word. We were all friendly enough and life was fine. About 2 years after moving in, my mom bought a portable hose to water her outdoor plants and clean the balcony off. This is when the mess hit the fan. Trina lost it when my mom washed the patio for the first time. Just water, no chemicals, just rinsing the dirt off. Trina promptly started screaming about killing my mom for doing this. She then complained to the condo association every single day for years. She started to burn small fires in a coffee can under our window in an attempt to smoke us out. She once saw my bedroom window was left open and literally flooded my room with her hose. She would call the police on every single noise we ever made. It got to the point that if she called the police and they showed up and there wasn't an issue, she would be fined $50. A couple years later, I became pregnant very young, 18, and my boyfriend moved in and we had a baby. She told my boyfriend that I had a revolving line of men and I was unsure who the father was, but chose him because he was nice. She continued with her nonsense for years and years. She once was driving down the driveway while I was getting my then 2 kids into the car. She literally tried to hit my oldest son with her car. I had to physically pick him up and throw him out of the way. When the police came, she denied everything. She harassed my family for years to the point of the condo association having to have private meetings with her and my dad, which nothing ever came of. The condo association was just as fed up as we were. 3 years ago, my mom died suddenly of CJD, and when she realized my mom was no longer around, she left and told my dad and my kids that my mom deserved to die. She was an awful woman. She recently fell ill with the pandemic and subsequently had a stroke. We don't know if she is still alive or in home, but my dad, who still lives there, says it is nice to be free of the constant harassment. And sadly, Ripe Stars, we have already reached the end of the video. However, as usual, if you cannot get enough of my videos, I would suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up very soon on the left side of the screen. In addition, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit content. Mainly, at least at the moment, just no mother-in-law videos. In addition, guys, I would just like to say we are super close to 50,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It would be a dream come true to finally reach 50k. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.